my heart.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un calls to define the South as the #1 hostile country in the regime's constitution and to stipulate the issue of fully occupying the territory in the event of war. President Yoon vows harsh retaliation for any provocation as he criticized such comments as against ethnicity. Former U.S. President Donald Trump wins big in the Iowa Republican caucus as America kickstarts its presidential nomination contests. The government aims to front-load a significant amount of its budget during the first 6 months of the year to help ease the cost of living for people as inflation remains burdensome. It's January 16, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon. We start with North Korea renewing its hostility towards the South. Its leader Kim Jong-un says the regime should define South Korea as the #1 hostile country in its constitution and stipulate territorial occupation in the event of war. Pyongyang now says it was closing down a counterpart to South Korea's unification ministry. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil begins our coverage.
Yet another hostile remark from North Korea's leader. During a key meeting of North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly on Monday, leader Kim Jong-un said his regime needs to firmly define South Korea as the #1 hostile country and an unchangeable enemy of the North. Kim went on to say that the constitutional amendment must include the issue of fully occupying South Korea and incorporating it into the North's territory in the event of a war. According to the state-run Rodong-Sinmun newspaper, Kim said the regime's education and cultural sectors must promote these ideas. Pyongyang also announced that it was closing down the National Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of the Fatherland as unification will never be realized. The committee worked as a counterpart to South Korea's unification ministry. In addition, the agency in charge of the Mount Kumgang tourism project will be shut down. Mount Kumgang used to be one of the few places where South Koreans could visit the North legally. The Ministry of Unification released a statement on Tuesday saying the North's moves were a political provocation seeking to create divisions in South Korean society. It added that the so-called Two Koreas theory promulgated by the North defied the long history of Koreans living together and was an anti-national and anti-historical act that threatened these same people with nuclear weapons. Son-hui, a Ministry of National Defense spokesperson, also commented on the issue.
North Korea's intentions of using force to unify South Korea have never changed, as it continues to carry out various provocations to this day. Our military is facing this head-on and maintains a firm mental and military readiness.
Regarding the northern limit line, the de facto sea border between the two Koreas that Kim refuses to recognize, Jeon added that this would be protected at all costs. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And President Yoon responded today with a pledge of harsh retaliation for any provocation by North Korea, as he criticized that what the regime says is against its own heritage and history. He also urged to defeat its deceitful tactics. Our presidential office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Just hours after North Korea's state media reported on Kim Jong-un's decision to constitutionally label South Korea as the regime's #1 hostile country, President Yoon didn't shy away when hitting back with remarks of his own.
이는 북한 정권 스스로가 반민족적이고 반역사적 집단이라는 사실을 자인한 것입니다.
On the contrary, South Korea's constitution says the nation's territory is all of the Korean peninsula and that it shall seek peaceful unification based on democratic order. The comments came at a planned cabinet meeting where the president usually broadcasts his opening statements live. There he also reiterated that the nation is ready to retaliate against any provocation, multiple times stronger. And referring to the statement that Pyongyang will not be recognizing the northern limit line, the de facto inter-Korean maritime border, Yoon said it's an attempt to make people anxious and divide South Korea. In fact, he called for unity to fight against the propaganda.
전쟁이냐 평화냐를 협박하는 재래의 위장 평화 전술은 더 이상 통하지 않습니다. 우리 국민과 정부는 하나가 되어 북한 정권의 기만 전술과 선전선동을 물리쳐 나아가야 합니다.
And amidst the exchange of harsh words, he underscored that the true threat is not the people of North Korea, but its regime.
북한 주민들은 우리와 똑같이 자유와 인권과 번영을 누릴 권리를 가진 우리와 같은 민족입니다. 우리는 이들을 따뜻하게 포용해 나가야 합니다.
And despite North Korea's deciding to shut down all agencies related to inter-Korean relations, President Yoon ordered for more work to be done by South Korea's Unification Ministry. Specifically, he said the nation will do more to help North Korean defectors settle in South Korea and said the ministry needs to legally designate a day to celebrate the North Korean defectors. He also called on the foreign ministry to cooperate with the global community to help and protect the defectors. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
North Korean Foreign Minister Son-hui, currently on a 3-day visit to Moscow, is scheduled to speak with her Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, on Tuesday local time. It will be their first meeting in 3 months. It's speculated they will discuss Russian President Vladimir Putin's potential visit to North Korea. Previously, the Kremlin had said that Russia hoped for a Putin visit to North Korea in a, quote, foreseeable future, while saying no date had been agreed. Eyes are also on whether Putin will greet Choe, as Kim Jong-un had greeted Lavrov during the latter's visit to Pyongyang in October. Over in the U.S., former President Donald Trump won a landslide victory in the first 2024 Republican presidential contest in Iowa, solidifying his status as the party's standard bearer. For Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis finished in second place. Yeun has more.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump scored a decisive win in the Iowa Caucuses on Monday, solidifying his firm status as the frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination. Trump secured more than half the votes with about 51%. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis finished second with 21%, with former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley closely behind with 19%.
They said, well, if you win by 12%, that's a big win. That's going to be very hard to do. Well, I think we more than doubled that, I guess, tripled it maybe.
Monday's win does not guarantee Trump the party's nomination, but it does give him a strong start in the race. Also, because Iowa is the first contest, Iowa caucuses have historically played an important role in narrowing the presidential field. And the results are seen as having a big influence on media coverage and public perception. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who finished in second place, thanked supporters for backing him.
Because of your support, in spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
For DeSantis, the focus is now on the primary race in New Hampshire on January 23rd. Meanwhile, biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out of the presidential race after finishing fourth in Iowa on Monday. He then formally endorsed Donald Trump, as public opinion surveys show that his supporters have the former president as their second choice. Democrats will kick off their first official primary on February 3rd in South Carolina, with President Joe Biden seeking to run for re-election. The U.S. presidential election is set for November 5th. Arirang News.
In the Middle East, Houthi rebels are escalating their attacks against American vessels in regional waters, keeping tensions high and Western commercial ships at bay. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Tensions continue to flare in the Red Sea as Yemen's Houthi rebels launched an anti-ship ballistic missile, which struck a U.S.-owned and operated cargo ship on Monday. The attack against the Gibraltar Eagle marks the first time the rebel group have successfully struck a U.S.-owned or operated ship. The Marshall Island-flagged bulk carrier sustained minor damage, but did not report any injuries on board. The attack comes as the Houthis announced their intention to target American ships. A Houthi spokesman added that the U.S., which recently led multinational airstrikes targeting Houthi strongholds in Yemen, was in danger of losing maritime security. He went on to say that all ships from countries participating in military attacks against them are considered enemy targets. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said on Monday that Palestinians will govern the Gaza Strip after the war with Israel ends, adding that Hamas rule and military threat in the enclave will also end after the war. At a press conference, Gallant stressed that as Palestinians live in the Gaza Strip, it will be the Palestinians who will live and govern it in the future. He said there would no longer be any military threat from Gaza, as the militant group won't be able to rule and function as a military force in the region. The defense chief added that the future government would be a civilian alternative, but insisted that the Israeli military would have the freedom of operation in order to protect Israeli citizens. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is providing an additional $8 million worth of humanitarian assistance to help civilians affected by the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said on Tuesday that this will be done through close cooperation with related international organizations. This is the second assistance package of its kind from South Korea, following a $2 million one in October. The Korean government aims to front-load a significant amount of its budget in the first half of the year to help ease the cost of living for people as inflation remains burdensome. Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
South Korea is set to spend heavily in the first half of the year in a bid to improve people's livelihoods. The Finance Ministry announced during an emergency economic meeting on Tuesday that the government will spend a record 65% of the central government's funds for the year during the first 6 months of 2024. This comes as South Korea continues to see weak consumption due to high inflation despite signs of economic recovery.
While the economy is showing a recovery mainly due to exports, it is expected to be difficult for people to feel this recovery in their daily lives during the first half of the year due to high inflation and interest rates.
Including local government funds, the government's plan to spend around 350 trillion won or some $260 billion in just the first half of 2024. And a significant portion of it is set to be allocated to welfare for vulnerable groups, job creation, and social overhead capital projects. The government is also moving to stabilize prices of 16 commodities in high demand to ease the burden of inflation ahead of Seoul or the New Year holiday. It aims to maintain the average prices of 16 Lunar New Year holiday commodities, such as apples and pears, below 2023 levels. It would also help provide discounts of up to 60% on agricultural, livestock, and fishery products.
We plan to supply a record 260,000 tons of high-demand products and provide discounts to manage prices at levels lower than last year's. There will be a focus on keeping the increase in prices of apples and pears in the single digits.
State-run expressway tolls will also be waived throughout the Lunar New Year holiday from February 9th to February 12th. To accommodate the increased demand for air travel over the holidays, the government also plans to increase international flights by around 10% compared to the end of last year. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's auto exports for last year hit an all-time high thanks to eco-friendly cars. And our An Sung-jin explains how the country looks to further expand the sector specifically through tax-intensive incentives and cutting the red tape.
South Korea's automobile exports hit a record high in 2023. According to the Trade Ministry on Tuesday, the total value of exports last year reached $70.9 billion. More than a third of that figure came from eco-friendly vehicles. The total value of exports in 2023 is an increase of 30% compared to that of 2022. In terms of production, 4,240,000 cars were produced, exceeding the 4 million mark for the first time since 2018. This is largely due to a recovery in the supply of automotive semiconductors. Nearly 70% of the cars manufactured in South Korea were exported, with North America being the main market, followed by the EU. Also in 2023, the auto industry created the highest number of jobs within the country's manufacturing sector. One expert says that this is only going to get better this year.
Alongside the outlook that the U.S. Fed will cut its interest rate throughout the year, as Hyundai expects to finish building its first U.S. EV plant in Georgia. All EVs produced will receive subsidies, increasing the sales of eco-friendly cars. Premium cars such as the Genesis brand are also becoming popular in European countries such as Germany.
The government aims to further bolster competitiveness in the electric vehicle sector by innovating regulations for the industry, extending tax benefits, and investing in establishing large-scale manufacturing facilities in areas including the city of Ulsan. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Seoul's Trade Ministry has shared its latest blueprint on fostering the nation's robotics sector, focusing on intelligent robots. Our Moon Hae-ryun explains all about it.
As robots and artificial intelligence are becoming increasingly integrated across all industries, the government has unveiled its blueprint for South Korea's robot industry. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy sets up a plan every 5 years to foster the development of intelligent robots in the country. And the one announced on Tuesday is their fourth, with its goal set to be achieved by 2028. The fourth Intelligent Robot Basic Plan focuses on different strategies to support new businesses which use robots, to increase their participation in industry and society, and cultivate the country's robot industry as a whole. Authorities plan to achieve this through a variety of methods, namely through funding on a scale of 3 trillion Korean won or $2.2 billion until 2030. A key area they will be looking to support is domestic production of core robot parts, aiming for 80% of parts to be produced locally by 2030. To do this, the government will be encouraging the participation of companies with high demand for robots during the development process. They will also nurture more manpower in the sector by funding robot-based education programs such as graduate schools and establishing a second center for training robot operators and coordinators. Various ministries are set to come together to achieve the goal of supplying 1 million high-tech robots by 2030 and improve 51 different regulations to promote and support distribution as soon as possible. In addition, they will increase cooperation to aid domestic robot companies entering overseas markets through active public relations and networking support, and applying for the necessary overseas certifications. To ease concerns surrounding robots, the government is planning to release a detailed guideline so that they are developed and used for the right reasons. Around $150 million will be spent on building a national robot test field to verify the stability and reliability of robots, with the aim of speeding up the process of putting robots in the development stage on the market. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
This year's World Economic Forum has opened doors in Davos, and organizers say it comes amid the most challenging geopolitical scenario to date. Yeun has details.
Global elites, from business leaders to heads of state, are in Davos for the 54th World Economic Forum, which kicked off Monday morning local time under the theme of Rebuilding Trust. The backdrop of this year's meeting is even more complex, with issues including geopolitical tensions, evolving economic policies, and rapid technological advancements. Founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, gave opening remarks alongside the WEF president and the president of Switzerland. Addresses were also made by Chinese Premier Li Qiang and the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. With 2,800 participants from 120 countries, much of this year's focus is expected to be on high-level diplomatic talks on wars in the Middle East, Ukraine, and Africa. On Monday, Switzerland agreed to host the Global Peace Summit for Ukraine at the request of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Further details are set to be worked out starting Tuesday, but Zelensky has said that as one of Russia's key allies, China has a big role to play and called for Beijing's participation in the peace talks. Meanwhile, the Kremlin on Monday dismissed talks in Davos over Ukraine's peace proposals, saying nothing would be achieved because Russia was not part of the discussions. Representing the U.S., Secretary of State Antony Blinken, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry are in attendance. Leaders from international bodies and civil society groups also joining the forum include the United Nations' Antonio Guterres, NATO's Jens Stoltenberg, the World Health Organization's Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and Tirana Hassan of Human Rights Watch. And prominent figures related to the global economy at the forum include the International Monetary Fund Managing Director, the World Bank President, and the World Trade Organization Director General. Yeun, Arirang News.
Turning to the 75th Emmys in Los Angeles, Korean-American actor Steven Yeun has added another award to his collection. He won the Outstanding Lead Actor Award for his role in the Netflix series Beef. Our Yeun has more.
South Korea-born American actor Steven Yeun has captured the first Emmy of his career for his role in the Netflix series Beef. He won the Outstanding Lead Actor Award in a limited series or TV movie at the 75th Primetime Emmy Awards, which took place on Monday local time in Los Angeles. Beef is a comedy drama where Yeun stars as Danny Choe, a second-generation immigrant working as a building contractor who becomes embroiled in a road rage confrontation.
Well, our goal was never to silo ourselves as separate. We want to connect with everybody. We're telling human stories.
While talking about the impact of the series, Yeun also expressed his gratefulness to be living in a time where differences are appreciated.
Honestly, I feel blessed that we live in this time where we can all kind of like see past ways in which we separate ourselves, celebrate those, but also come together. It feels really nice.
Yeun's co-star Ali Wong won Outstanding Lead Actress in the same category. Beef won a total of 8 awards at the Emmys, including Outstanding Limited or Anthology Series and Outstanding Directing for the show's creator, Korean-American Lee Sung-jin. Steven Yeun has picked up multiple awards in the U.S. for his role in Beef. The Emmys comes just over a week after the Golden Globes, where Yeun and Ali Wong became the first actors of Asian descent to win in their categories. He also took home Best Actor in a limited series at the Critics' Choice Awards. Yeun, Arirang News.
Seoul Fashion Week Fall-Winter 2024 will begin on February 1st and will run for 5 days. The Seoul Metropolitan Government has announced that the event will take place at Dongdaemun Design Plaza and S Factory in Seongsu, an area of Seoul that has emerged as a new fashion mecca for younger people. Seoul Fashion Week will open 6 weeks earlier than the Big Four of New York, Paris, and Milan and London, reflecting the growing interest in K-fashion. Throughout the event, there will be a total of 21 runway shows, 15 at DDP and 6 at S Factory. Last year, K-pop girl group NewJeans was selected as the global ambassador for Seoul Fashion Week, and they will continue in that role this year too.
Temperatures were really frigid this morning. Fortunately, they increased significantly during the daytime, taking away the cold wave. From the afternoon, clouds had gradually increased across the country. There will be light rain or snow in the forecast for tomorrow, mainly in the central areas and Jeollado provinces. The rain will start in the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongdo provinces tomorrow afternoon and gradually expand to Gangwon-do province and southern regions. The expected amount of rain is 1 to 5 millimeters, which is not too much, but rain in mountainous areas where temperatures are low may turn into snow. This rain and snow will continue until the day after tomorrow in the central areas and late in the week in southern parts of the country. In particular in Yeongdong, strong and heavy snow could last long until Sunday, so it's important to be prepared. Tomorrow's Seoul will start off at -2 degrees Celsius, Daejeon and Gyeongju -3 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul will get up to 4 degrees along with Chuncheon and Daejeon. There will be no major cold for the rest of the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋. Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive. 끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello everyone, welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. South Korea's version of NASA, the Korea Aerospace Administration, is expected to be launched this May. This comes as part of Seoul's efforts to catch up with other advanced countries' space programs and eventually become one of the world's top space powers. The country plans to land a spacecraft on the moon in 2032 and on Mars in 2045. And with successes we have already seen with Danuri, Korea's first lunar orbiter, and homegrown Nuri rocket launch, hopes are high. What role would this new space agency CASA play, and how are other countries fulfilling their ambitions in space? For this, we invite Professor Paul Yeun from El Camino College. He is also a NASA Solar System Ambassador. Welcome, Professor.
Well, thank you.
And we also have Dr. Kang Sung-ju, an astronomer and science communicator from More Science. Good to see you, Dr. Kang.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
All right, first, Professor Yoon, let's first talk about the value of the global space industry. So according to Morgan Stanley, it says that the space economy will continue to grow and eventually surge to over $1 trillion by 2040. Could you tell us more about how promising this sector is?
That's a very good question. So there are many indicators, there are many research institutions come up, and then it all indicating space economy is growing. So Morgan Stanley 2022, they come with the idea that by 2040, it'll hit 1 trillion. But in fact, according to 2020, when they come with their report, 2022, they're expecting $411 billion. But now we look back at the data in 2022, it's far more than $411 billion. So what that means is, space economy is growing faster than Morgan Stanley expected. And furthermore, space economy is growing due to the related to fourth industrial revolution. It's all about Internet of Things, autonomous driving and navigation, data services. I think it might go faster than what we expected.
Right, so space economy is growing faster than we all expected. All right, Dr. Kang. We are going to talk about how other global space powers are doing, but let's first focus on South Korea. Last Tuesday, the National Assembly passed a bill to establish this space agency called CASA, which will be responsible for the country's space developments. But what is Seoul's plans?
South Korea's space plan is to establish itself as a dominant role in the global space market. So right now they're trying to create around about more jobs. They're planning to create about 500,000 jobs around the space sector, as well as the huge economic thrust. So they're reflecting the magnitude of its investment in space technology starting from the 0.4 trillion to 4 trillion won in next decade, over next few decades. So South Korea's ambitious aspiration include a lunar landing by, as you said, 2032, and the Mars plan by 2045. So these are not just our symbolic milestones. They reflect the calculated actions to try to lead a global market. As one of the global leading sector country as South Korea as a leading part of the global market.
All right, I see. Looks like CASA will be in charge of many agendas.
Right.
Professor Yoon, the space agency will be launched as early as May this year. And it is indeed a great step, but some raised concerns that it will be difficult for this agency to assemble experts. What's your view on this?
Gathering experts, that's going to be challenging because particularly there are agencies more likely located near a certain part of the Korea, which is the Gyeongsang province. So it'll take a time, but eventually I think that issue will be resolved. But I think more challenging issue is the direction, what space agency is supposed to do, showing the direction of the space policy. It's relating to how space is going to relate to the national economy, how about inspiring the young generation, how you're going to relate to industries, or how you're going to collaborate with the international partners, or how to work with the different agencies. I think these are the kind of master plan might be the one space agency to come up. I think that's going to be a more important issue in the long run. But I think right, initially relocating personnel to the different location might be challenging, but I think it's going to be resolved eventually.
All right, I see. So there could be challenges, but if these challenges are addressed, Dr. Kang, I assume it would definitely be, really helpful for South Korea to boost joint projects with other space-related institutes in other countries. What's your view on this?
One of the most significant effect of the building the CASA, like a Korean version of the NASA establishment, is the potential for increased international collaborations, like, as you say, the NASA or JAXA. This new body will allow the South Korea to conduct a cooperative space missions, share research, and exchange the technology with for the leading space exploration countries. So it's an opportunity to capitalize on a distinctive contribution to global space program right now. So not only for the political missions, as well as we have to find out raise the human resources as well. So that's the challenge for right now, and they have to spend a lot of money, spend the fund to raise the experts for them as well.
All right, I see. Now, Professor Yoon, as we have discussed up until now, South Korea's goal is to land on the moon by 2032 and on Mars by 2045. Could you tell us about South Korea's current technology level and if these missions are possible?
Okay, I think so far Korea has done a great job. There are only a few countries actually going to the outer space. So Korea has one of the few countries that has a launching capability to space. So that's a great accomplishment. Also, we know that Korea for KPLO, Tanuriho, it's like orbiting the moon. That's another accomplishment. So Korea's leverage is very, very high compared to other countries. But Korea's mission that planning to go to the moon by 2030 or go to Mars, it's a different level of game. For example, Korea's launching capability to go to low Earth orbit. That's about 500 or 700 kilometers above the from the Earth. But moon is, for example, more than 340,000 kilometers, right?
Right.
So it's a different story. So Korea needs to continually advance their technology, necessary technology, but also got to try out diverse missions. I think that's the only way Korea can learn, advance their technologies. But most important thing is about Korea's capability. Currently, Korea's space capability might be very limited compared to a more advanced country. But I think let's look back what Korea has done in the last half centuries. I think around the 1980s, no country expected Korea's automobile industry to be one of the top. How about the semiconductor when they started in the 1980s? Now, Korea is sharing more than 19% of the global share of the semiconductor. How about 2024 space sector? What do you think is going to happen next 30 years? So just don't underestimate Korea's capability. Also, we know that there's a K-pop, K-food. You know what's happening nowadays. So let's see what Korea can do.
All right. It's going to be really challenging, but we do believe that it's going to have its capability.
I think so. Yes, I believe.
All right. Now, moving on to other countries' space projects as well. Dr. Kang, let's first talk about US's. Automotive technology developed this lunar lander Peregrine, but after its launch, it abandoned this moon landing attempt because of this fuel leak. Well, what was this exactly about?
This incident highlights the inherent challenges of the space mission. Particularly, lunar exploration is very hard because outside of this, sending a spacecraft or sending something to other space body is really challenging. So the Peregrine lander would represent a key step in the United States lunar objective, had a critical issue with a fuel leak, as you just mentioned, resulting in propellant loss, which is very critical because you mean that's the out of gas. The car is out of gas. It cannot go anywhere because you need those gases for stopping inserting the lunar orbits, or to steer the trajectory and everything. So that's pretty vital incident for lunar landing. So the fuel leak in Peregrine mission demonstrate the complexity of the space travel, where precision is very essential, because this small precision, this small leak can cause like a big, huge failure for inserting the moon orbiting. So right now, so the fuel leaking has a big problem, and they cannot repair on the in situ over there. So they try to decide to abandon that Peregrine moon lander with a fuel leak. But the launcher itself has not any problem. The moon lander itself has a fuel leak, so that's a different cases. So the launcher itself was working well, but the moon lander has a fuel leak, has a problem.
All right, I see. Thank you for your explanation. Professor Yeun, so after this Peregrine failure, NASA postponed its Artemis missions by nearly a year. But what were these missions about in the first place, and what are the challenges they're facing right now?
Yes, right. So 1969, we saw the Apollo 11 land on the moon. But the following mission, one of them was Apollo 13. I think, Morgan, did you have a chance to watch the Apollo 13 missions?
Not really.
Yeah, so
I don't even
the
remember.
reason is we couldn't make the landing on the moon, but we safely bring the astronaut back home. So we know that unless we're 100% sure, we're not going to send a human to the moon. So that was a reason for why we postponed. So Artemis 2, which is going back to the moon, by the late of this year, but we postponed no earlier than September 2025. So it's going to postpone it. So following human landing missions, Artemis 2 will be just going around the moon. That's similar to a 1968 Apollo 8 missions.
Right.
But Artemis 3, that we're planning to landing humans to the moon, that's similar to Apollo missions, 1969. But we found out there are three major issues NASA found out. First issue was Apollo Artemis 1, we actually go around the moon and come back. We put the mannequin rather than humans. We found out erosion on the heat shield, which is when people the spacecraft coming back to the Earth, there's a strong the air friction that causes a lot of heat. So heat shield, we found out erosion. That's why it was very important testing out the system before we send the actual humans. So we need time to fix it. But second issue was we find out error in electric circuit for life support system. And then particularly we found that the error in the eliminating carbon dioxide. So when you breathe, there's a carbon dioxide coming out. We found that error, so we need time to fix it. But another issue was abort systems, which means if the space launching system have a problem, Orion capsule must be aborted. So the system works, but there's a simulation for a fuel issue. Is there enough fuel for landing the Orion safely if something goes wrong? We found the error. So NASA decided we need time to fix all this without rushing. Furthermore, our commercial partner, SpaceX, they're developing Starship, which we're going to use for landing on the, busting the astronaut to the surface of the moon. Also, Exxon Space, which is a part of the Boreal, I think, that's the drug companies, right? They're working on it. They're developing a spacesuit. They need more time to work it out. So at the industry, they say we need more time. So NASA realized there's technical issues. So why don't we take more time for safety? That's why these two missions got postponed another year.
All right, I see your point. Now, Dr. Ga, we have been talking about U.S., but China too is on track to launch a lunar lander in this first half of this year. Could you tell us more about this?
In the ongoing lunar exploration race, we see a compelling struggle between the China and the United States, like major space powers these days. Those two, most notably, like China is very aggressively invest, and they're doing a lot of investment over there. So China's lunar program is making a great progress these days, with their lunar explorer already at the launch site, preparing for a mission scheduled for the first half of this year. So their achievement, including the Chang'e 3 and Chang'e 4 missions, have already established multiple firsts in lunar explorations, and demonstrating the efficiency of their government-backed program. So government is very supporting for space program right now. The difference approaches like China and United States are very different. The China is leading by the government supported, and right now the U.S. is leading government as well as the private sectors. So, which reflects the different strategies between the China and U.S. Because while China appears to be making very steady progress to step by step to achieve their goal, but right now United States are two tracks, like they're leading the government like an Artemis is by leading by government, but the private sectors, they're trying to reduce the cost efficiency. They're focusing on reduce the launching cost right now. So they are in two tracks, but China with the government support is huge amount of the money are spending right now. So that's a big track, and China, back in the 1960s until like early 2000, Russia and U.S. was the two leading countries for the space sectors. But right now, the China is definitely one of the sector, and the U.S. is a leading part. So China is very, very aggressively spending the monies and then investing, and they're doing what exactly U.S. done by back in 1960s, 70s in less than past 10 years or so. So they're trying to catch up the U.S. right now.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see how the space race between U.S. and China goes in the future. All right, well, Professor Yeun, we have been talking about U.S. and China, but other countries have also had their space-related achievements as well. For example, India, it made a historic moon landing last year, and Japan, too, also came up with a moon sniper lander. Could you tell us more about the space ambitions by other countries?
You're right. I think we could go back to history. Let's talk about history briefly. We know that Soviet Union, former Russia, this is the country that successfully landing and then putting the rover in the Sampuri the first time robotic mission. And then United States NASA, first human mission to the moon. And then I think it was so quiet until, as what Dr. Kang says, until 2019. China landed first time on the far side of the moon. And that was the first time. So they start to really inspiring this moon mission. And after the following, NASA decided to go back to Artemis human mission, taking our human mission back to the moon. But this time, Artemis is different from Apollo mission. Artemis, it was not, Apollo was a kind of visiting moon a couple of times, but Artemis, we're going to stay there a long time and building a station, putting the lunar gateway around the moon, or putting something South Pole. You know, we know in Earth there's like a research center there, right? We're going to put something like that in the South Pole. That's what NASA's long-term plan. And then following August, as you mentioned, Bogan, you mentioned, last August, Russia, to recover glory, past glory, they tried to land on it, but they failed. But a few days later, India landed on the South Pole, first time again. They put the rover, they put the orbiter, orbit insertion was successful, they put the lander, and they put the rover. So India growing another thriving power in the space exploration, and they're planning to, doing research on the moon, they want to go far beyond from there. And now Japan, fifth country, now it's orbiting now. Next few days, Japan's going to try to land on the moon again. But now Sniperman, you know that Sniperman, accurate shooter, right? They try to land very accurately. So I think this what the space what the leaders are going to the moon. And I think it's going to more countries coming up. And one of the other key competitor is South Korea.
All right, I see. Very interesting. Now, Dr. Go, before I wrap up this show, I'd like to ask you this last question. South Korea is, in order for South Korea to, catch up this global space powers, what more should be done in your opinion?
The very first step is try to reduce the cost of the launching spacecraft. Among the other responsibilities, like the launch cost, reducing the launch cost is very crucial because we do not have that much of the fund to invest to space exploration. It will increase gradually, but not right now. So the main part is try to reduce the cost of the launching spacecraft, and the CASA will be responsible for a wide range of the tasks. So including like devising and coordinating aerospace policies right now. So securing critical space technology, developing and exploiting space resources, those are very important part of the CASA has to do right now. And the educational part, we have to catch up. We do not let the educational part behind. So that's one of the important thing that we have to keep in mind.
All right, I see. Professor Yeun, may I ask your opinion as well? What more should be done?
Yes, ma'am. I think I just want to point out, again, recap up that what the Bogyan you said about space economy. Also what the Dr. Kang's announcement about NASA's approach to space economy. You know, NASA is very, United States and the government and NASA is very, they're going to space to boost the vitalize space, the U.S. economy through the space explorations. So I think what Korea want to do is, for several reasons. I think taxpayers are in Korea spending a lot of money for space exploration. And then space agency need to return back to the country so that the nation grow economically, education-wise, politically, science-wise, every aspect. So I think Korea needs some overarching plan. How are you going to, through the space exploration, how are you going to promote space economy, the national economy, education, improving science technologies? I think all of this kind of plan might be first step before you are actually focusing on only one sector area. I think that's what Korea need to come up with a global and long-term plan in space explorations.
All right, needs overarching plan.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Professor Yeun. Well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Professor Yeun.
Thank you, Bogyan.
And thank you, Dr. Gang, for your time and insights.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate it. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Your long-awaited parcel arrives.